This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 212 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I have a really just delightfully fun and happy kind of episode today. It's about weddings and honeymoons abroad, but it's not all just soppy romantic stuff, although there's a fair share of that too. There's a lot of really intriguing destinations and cultural interactions and all kinds of stuff. I've really enjoyed putting this together. But I have some quite long stories, so I won't rabbit on. I will let my guests do the talking today. So the very first guest is Scott Antcliffe. You might remember him from his story about getting engaged while travelling. And in fact, that's a great companion episode to this one. So that was episode 197, if you want to go back and have a listen. But Scott also told me about what happened after he and his wife got married.
Yeah, so we got married in August of 2018, and I thought I wanted to use some of my mum's inheritance money in a good way, and I thought, why not, do it and go to a place where our honeymoon was really special and somewhere I'd never really get the chance to go again. And so we looked at different holidays, and we looked at Bali, but we thought, well, it's quite a long flight from the UK. And so we decided we like to explore and see things and do things when we travel, but we also wanted a bit of sort of luxury and a bit of just relaxing, really, by a beautiful beach. So we thought, why not go to Sri Lanka and have a week exploring around Sri Lanka, and then follow that up by a week in the Maldives. And so that was the plan. We booked it all, and Sri Lanka was amazing. So many different sites, and the culture aspects were great, and the places we went to was just stunning. But then we were ready for a week of relaxation, because all the exploring in Sri Lanka really sort of took its toll, sort of physically and everything else. So we were really looking forward to the Maldives, and we got we stayed at a resort which is in the South Ari Atoll. So it's almost near the equator line, and it's so close to the equator. It's one of the most southernmost islands in the Maldives. So to get there, we had to take we flew from Colombo to Male, which is the capital of the Maldives, and then we had to then get an internal flight to Kadidu Airport, which was about an hour and 40 minutes, and then a speedboat from Kadidu Airport to our resort where we stayed. So it's quite a long journey. But whilst flying over on the internal flight to Kadidu Airport, I had this moment of realization, and it was quite overwhelming. I was on the plane, and I was seeing the beautiful dotted islands below, and the beautiful azure waters, and just the colors. And I thought, wow, I've a child who sort of, my parents got divorced at a young age. I was one of 4 siblings, and the first time I ever went abroad, I was 20. I grew up on sort of free school meals at school. And I thought, I've done really well here to be sat on this plane at this moment, flying over to a place what I never thought would be imaginable. And particularly as a child, when, like I mentioned, I didn't get to go abroad till I was 20. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be going to somewhere as beautiful and as special as the Maldives. And when I was on the plane, the tears just started streaming down my face. And Lorna said to me, my wife, she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just really happy." And this is the most perfect moment imaginable, that I never thought I'd be able to do something that I'm doing. So once again, the Maldives would be such a special place for us.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm so glad for you that you were able to get there. And I think, travel is such a privilege. And I think when we can recognize how lucky we are, then we just, we get even so much more out of it. It's a beautiful story. So, and how did you enjoy your time in the Maldives?
It was amazing. The resort we stayed at, the staff there, they knew your name before you arrived. They just couldn't do enough for you. It was the most perfect island. It wasn't too big and it wasn't too small of an island either. So it was just the right size where we could go off on a nice walk, and the wildlife and everything. It's the first time as well. Another interesting moment. I was, as a child, I was always afraid of the water. So what I did, I had some swimming lessons, some private one-to-one swimming lessons, because I wasn't very confident in water. And I thought, I can't go to a place as beautiful as the Maldives and not like go in the sea and snorkel. And so I sort of confronted my fears for about 6 months leading up to the trip by having one-to-one swimming lessons weekly. And it was, the perfect thing to do, because when I was in the water and snorkeling underneath and seeing the turtles and the reef sharks and all the, the stunning fish, it was just amazing. It was just such a surreal, lovely experience.
Oh, that's fabulous. Good on you for, for planning ahead like that and to decide to, get over that fear and to be able to snorkel and enjoy that. Because I haven't been to the Maldives, but I have seen enough to know that it must be a place where you really do want to get into the water.
No, absolutely. It's just thinking about it now, it was just such a surreal experience, and one that, I feel really lucky and privileged to have experienced.
Oh, that's fabulous. Oh, beautiful. I just can't get over your joy and appreciation of being able to travel. I think that's really, really special. Beautiful story, hey? And I wish that everyone who ever travels could recognise the privilege that they have each time as much as Scott does. I just love his attitude. It's perfect. Now, my next guest today is Shaney Hudson, a travel writer friend of mine who, when I put the call out saying, hey, anyone got an interesting story about, getting married abroad or something, she said, yes, I do, because she got married not once or twice, but 3 times to the same person. It's all kind of just, they didn't get divorced in between or anything. They got married 3 times in 3 very, very different locations. And yes, that sounds confusing, but I will let Shaney explain this scenario for you.
So I originally met my husband in Costa Rica and I fell in love with him in Italy. He surprised me in Turkey, and then 3 months later I moved from Sydney, Australia to Rotterdam in the Netherlands to live with him. And we got married for the first time 5 years later after he proposed. Well, he planned to propose under the Northern Lights, but proposed in Finland. So we got married for the first time in Antarctica of all places, the second time at the registry office where we buy our local milk at the shopping centre, and the third time we were married by Elvis in Vegas.
I want to know so much more. Tell me about getting married in Antarctica. That sounds quite unusual.
Yes, well, I'm very lucky as I am a travel writer and my husband is a travel photographer. I had been lucky enough to go to the Arctic with my husband on assignment, and we had I was lucky enough to get a second assignment to go to Antarctica. So we had a good relationship with the company, being a travel writer, that were taking us down to Antarctica. And I had asked previously, well, it's a bit complicated. My husband is Dutch. I'm Australian. Weddings are expensive. It'd be a lot of pressure on my family. Let's just elope. So we asked the company very nicely if the ship's captain would consider marrying us. And luckily enough, they were very, very considerate and willing. So my husband and I ended up getting married on a little ice floe, which was wedged into the rocks at a place called Deception Island, which is not the ideal place to sort of seal the deal on a lifetime of matrimony happiness. But we got there, and we basically had an hour's notice. Antarctica is beautiful but deadly, and depending on the conditions, I've been lucky enough to experience it twice. You can have beautiful crystal clear days with no wind, and you can get a nasty sunburn, and then you can have howling wind, terrible weather, and not being able to land, and have a really kind of terrifying experience. So being able to be married by the ship's captain wasn't something like where we could plan a day or being able to pick our place. It had to be basically weather dependent, and also dependent on when the captain could leave the ship, because it's actually a big deal to ask a ice class ship's captain to leave his ship in Antarctica. So I basically got about 45 minutes notice. They said, if you want to do it today, the weather's not looking great, we can take you out and everyone's doing a Zodiac tour. We can let everyone go off and then we'll find a nice little spot, maybe hop on a little ice floe or a little iceberg that's wedged up against the rocks, and we'll just, if you want to do it, let's go. This is your chance.
Oh, my gosh.
So unfortunately, one of the worst things was with 45 minutes notice to get married, you really don't get a chance to like wash your hair, put on makeup, anything like that. Basically, I got married with greasy hair, and we did have some wedding clothes with us. That was quite nice. And we did have rings that we'd had custom made, which arrived basically the day before we left for Antarctica.
Lucky.
So we took a little Zodiac with one of the crew and his wife, and they became our unofficial photographer and videographer.
Oh.
And the ship's captain married us, and the ship's captain only spoke Polish, so he recited some words and learnt some words, which was very sweet, in English, with a little help from our expedition leader. He married us in a baseball cap and polar fleece, which, bless his little heart, was made for some interesting photos. But we had a ball, and it was really funny. I ended up with a plastic Hawaiian lei around my neck because the expedition crew was so desperate to like do something special for us. They pulled out all their plastic party gear, but unfortunately it doesn't look that great once it was all on. They did that afterwards. But so now in my photos I'm wearing this beautiful vintage headpiece from sort of the 1930s that I'd bought and been saving, and this beautiful 1950s wedding dress, and I've got beautiful boots on and everything, and then I've got a tacky $2 shop Hawaiian fluorescent lei around my neck, and so did my husband. But we were happy.
Oh,
and
so unique though. I mean, to be able to tell this story to your kids is so cool.
It's pretty fun, but it's really funny because as wonderful it was, and we went back on board the ship and they baked us a cake, and then everyone came back on board and thought it was marvelous when we were married. We actually saw a leopard seal that afternoon, and the most remarkable thing for us about our wedding day was this incredible interaction we had with the leopard seal. So getting married was nice, but having a leopard seal come right up to your Zodiac and try to chew on it, and actually coming up and sticking its face right up next to you within half a metre away was actually a little bit more remarkable than the wedding itself. So we loved it.
But as long as you both thought that, then that's okay.
Exactly. And I mean, my husband's a photographer, so we still have photos from this day, and I think we look at those photos more than our wedding photos. Then, of course, it was time to move back from the Netherlands to Australia, and while we consider our real wedding day back in March when we were in Antarctica, the Australian Government Immigration Department sadly doesn't.
How annoying.
So to be able to qualify for our visa, I mean, we'd already been together for 5-6 years. We just thought, well, we'll formalise it in the Netherlands. So we went down to our registry office, which was about a 4-block walk, 2-minute bike ride from our house, and it's also the little local shopping centre where we also buy milk and bread and supermarket and cheap wine and flowers. And we arranged to get married there. So that was our second wedding, which took place in Rotterdam. And we overslept, and I wore a second dress.
Did you wash your hair at least that day?
Do you know, I think I forgot to wash my hair that time.
Shady.
because I slept in. I had a friend come over from London, and we all got a little bit ratty the night before.
Celebrated, yes.
Yes, we celebrated. And that was nice, and it was between Christmas and New Year's, so Holland only sells fireworks for 3 days, so we bought a ton of fireworks and let them off.
Cool.
And, yeah, we just formalised our marriage, and it was a pretty scary realisation that at that level it was more about paperwork. I was legally binding myself to this person for life, and it was so easy to get married to him. But having had lots of friends go through divorces, I know how it's much trickier to get a divorce. So It was a really interesting experience. But, we were really happy, and it was a tacky little event meeting room in the registry office. And then we bought some milk on the way home because we'd run out of milk. So that was really fun. And
life
there was
goes
snow
on.
the ground. Yeah, life goes on. So that was nice. And that was sort of our legal wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was heading to Las Vegas. And with my work comes lots of opportunities. And I'd heard that in Vegas you can get married by Elvis. And we thought, well, when in Vegas, why not go and get married by Elvis?
Why not, indeed?
Indeed, yes. And we had a blast. Again, being a travel writer, I have lots of great opportunities. And I got to, be a guest of some of the tourist boards there. So, I was a little bit spoiled. But they thought I was actually getting married for the first time. So they were prepared to take me by limousine to the state office to get the official documentation. And because most packages in Vegas take you to go and get the courthouse documents, transfers, champagne, backwards and forwards.
Right.
It really is a great way to get married. And I have had a friend do it officially, and she had a blast. Hers was a drive-through wedding chapel though, so no Elvis, but convenience.
I was going to say that is, convenience at the utmost, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. If you want a shotgun wedding, you
don't even have to get out of the car.
I never thought I would actually enjoy getting married as much as I did for the third time. Elvis married at us, and he was 7 foot tall. I was eye level with this massive sequins and chest hair and diamantes, and it was hilarious. And I've never had so much fun in my life. In 10 minutes, I was in and out and married by Elvis, and he sang and we danced up and down the aisle, and we just had an absolute ball. So if anyone is considering it, I've never had so much fun in my life, and I've never been out the door quicker from any appointment in my life.
So Antarctica, the Netherlands, Las Vegas, that is a pretty impressive trifecta of weddings. They will never forget any of those getting married situations, I think. Great, great stories. Now, my final guest today is Emma Lovell, and she has a great, what I would like to think is a story that's overrepresented amongst travel lovers, and that's the idea of eloping, or at least, like in Emma's case, a planned elopement, not a, completely run away in the middle of the night idea. But I think there's really something to be said for having nearly no people there and going somewhere that you really particularly love. And, for me, I think spend the money on the trip, not on the fancy, wedding ceremony, reception, blah, blah, blah. That's my kind of wedding for sure. Anyway, Emma got the kind of wedding of her life planned and carried out just in the nick of time before coronavirus stopped travel. So I was really glad to hear that had happened. And she came on to tell me all about how it went.
So yeah, we got engaged in December 2019, and we got married 3 months later. So
fast, good.
Cheeky little fact: we had actually booked our wedding before we got engaged. So we knew that was happening, and we actually had asked a couple of our wedding guests to our wedding in May 2018. So this was a plan for a long time.
This was not an overnight elopement.
No. And so my husband and, partner at the time had been to Tulum in Mexico in 2016. And we had dove Dos Ojos, which is a really famous dive site. And the first time we'd actually spoken, we met on Tinder. We spoke on Tinder in 2014. That very first time we spoke, I told him about, I was like, oh, you're a diver. My husband's a diver for a job. The cenotes, you know of the cenotes, these sort of sunken riverbeds, natural pools of water in this region. And he had never heard of it. And I said, oh, well, you have to go. And sort of I was like, oh, you have to teach me to dive, which he did. Aww. And we'll have to go together, which we did. And so I cried that day. It was really special. And so this became this special place for us. Mm. And so when the elopement discussion came up, it was like, that's going to, that's our place. But yeah, we ended up contacting a wedding planner because we wanted to be legally married. And
yes, how does that work and your husband, he's also Australian?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we're both Australian, and I'd heard it was challenging. So, but, we were looking around, and the thing was that we needed to get was a blood test. And in some parts of Mexico, you need to have a chest x-ray. And that's to do with illnesses and not wanting to continue on illnesses.
Wow.
There's quite a lot of rules. They're a Catholic country, in some ways quite conservative still. And so I think someone said it, the blood and the chest x-ray goes back to the tuberculosis thing.
Okay, wow, fascinating.
Changed it.
Yeah, right. Goodness me.
So, you know, casually getting a blood test just right before your wedding. Basically, everything was saying you need a wedding planner. And to me, wedding planner just equals dollar signs.
Yes. And if you're wanting a small, intimate wedding, you're not really feeling like you need a wedding planner, but yeah.
No, and I just felt like they were going to push us into lots of stuff and whatever, but found one and just reached out and this is what I want, just can I get legally married? And they had Australians come and be married there before. So
right, so they really knew.
They knew. So yeah, they were amazing. And I went onto their Instagram and I saw these pictures of this couple getting, and I was like, is that a cenote? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, can you get married at a cenote? And they're like,
wow.
The other thing I saw was that these couple, flicked through the photos a bit more and they were in the water. And I said, excuse me, is that lady like in the water? And they were like, yeah, it's this thing called trash the dress where you go into the water in your dress, wedding dress. And there's special photographers for that. And so, yeah, we flew over on the 26th of Feb, which was getting a bit stressful, actually. We were trying to work out if that was because we had to do the blood tests and make sure we had all the things and approved before. Yeah, the funny thing was we're staying at this lovely fancy hotel. Our celebrant and a nurse arrived in a car out the front of the hotel. We sat in the back of the car and had our blood test done.
Oh, wow.
We're just getting blood, you know, just casual Mexico, just getting blood sucked out of your arm, just
in the back of a car.
How are you today? You know, just okay. And then they just took it off to the clinic, and they were so amazing in that respect too. Like, it was originally we were going to have to go to Playa del Carmen, which is it's not terrible, but an hour and a half away to go to the clinic. And I was just like, can we not figure out?
Is there another way? Yeah.
And they were beautiful. They came to us. So
that's amazing.
Then I got him blindfolded and he came down and he was blindfolded the whole way to the cenote. So we had to drive 40 minutes and he was blindfolded in the car.
Yeah.
Which he was very good about. But again, like, this is like classic Mexico. Put a blindfold on a man and put him in a car. Hostage.
Anything could happen.
I'm in the back seat having wine, having a great time. This is 7 o'clock in the morning. So,
oh gosh.
And the reason, so we actually got married at 9 a.m. because of the light. Because at the cenote, you're in the jungle. They just said the light's a lot better in the morning.
Right.
It's also quieter because what ended up happening, our cenote ended up actually falling through. And they found another one for us. And they said, now, look, we can book this privately, but I think, you know, again, it was going to be about $500 or $600.
Yeah.
Or we can pay $10 entry for everybody and kind of wing it.
Right.
And I was like, surely people are going to see that I'm in a dress.
And kind of stay clear, or at least watch from a distance.
Yeah. And the photographer had gone there at 10 a.m. and she's like, there's no one here. Like, she sent us a video and she's like, there's no one here. I think this will be okay. It's up to you guys. So I was like, yeah, I'd rather pay $130. Thank you. And yeah, nobody was there. Like, 2 people came along and she sort of just said, guys, can you just go the other way? And they did. And
perfect. Yeah.
No problem. I mean, she's Italian too. I was like, if there's going to be she'll sort him out. So yeah, I came down. He went down first. I had to wait in the car. I came down. Beautiful, you know, like birds, you know, just quiet.
What an atmosphere.
Jungle, walking past these beautiful pools of turquoise and blue, having these beautiful girls there with me, just totally there for me. Like, that was the most, they were just 100%, our guests were just there for us. Everything I had imagined in my mind and everything I had, even things I hadn't spoken out because I tried not to hold on too tight and control, they had come true.
Oh,
and
perfect.
Everybody just stepped up, you know. Like, I didn't know what the celebrant was going to say. Like, I didn't know. I hadn't met this photographer. Like,
but it all just worked.
Like, it was truly magical, and truly unique to us. As I said before, my husband's a diver, so he spends a lot of time in the water. I've always loved the water too. I think it's funny, like I had an under the sea party as I was like 9 and dressed up as a mermaid. So it was like manifesting.
There you go.
And it was just, it was really fun and unique and different. And so come 12 o'clock, I looked like a drowned rat and we got out. And I got into like just tracky dacks and a top, and we went and had tacos and margaritas. And then we went home for a nap, and our friends decorated our room for us like a honeymoon suite, and that was pretty cute. And then, we had a nap at 3 o'clock on our wedding day.
That sounds very smart.
Yeah, and then we got dressed up, went out for a dinner by the beach, and then, we're doing tequila shots on the rooftop, dancing in the town at night. So that was our very long wedding day, but it was just beyond what I could have ever imagined, and it was magical, and it was about us.
Getting married in a completely spectacular, amazing location, as Emma did, it sounds pretty awesome to me, and especially being able to skip a lot of the hassle as well. Very impressive stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed these fun stories about honeymoons and weddings in all kinds of interesting places abroad. I've enjoyed putting it together. A huge thank you to my guests who shared their delightful stories. As you know, we started off with Scott Antcliffe. You can find Scott on Twitter if you want to chat with him. He's at Cliffy94 on Twitter. Then I chatted with Shaney Hudson, and similarly you can find her on Twitter at Shaney Hudson. And lastly, I chatted with Emma of Lovely Travels. You can find her at lovelytravels.com. It's lovely with 2 L's near the end. And of course, the podcast of the same name as well. So thank you very much. If you have any of your own wedding, elopement, honeymoon, interesting kind of travel related stories, hop over to the Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers and tell us them there. I would love to hear some more. You can find it just by searching for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook, or there's a link in the show notes for this episode. The show notes will be at notaballerina.com/212. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And thank you, as always, very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.